Hi all, I'm Trisha Peach, host of the Peach Buzz. I am going on a very tough topic this week, and that is children's pastors and Christmas. Children's pastors and Christmas. Of course, this year, this is 2022 when I'm filming this. Christmas is on a Sunday, so that's a whole nother debate. I already watched that going off at different churches where I live. You know, if you don't do service on that Sunday, you're a heathen. You're putting the holiday before God. And then others saying, no. If you have service that day, you are putting the holiday before people's time with their family. Whatever you're doing, if you're having church on Christmas Sunday morning, the 25th, or you're not, and I'm assuming that my church will, whatever you decide, Pastor, I'm on board. But I've had to do, because I've been on different staffs, I've had to do Christmas on Sunday morning. I've had to do other things. Here's the thing. I'm not even going into that right now. What I am going into is the whole thing of children's pastors and Christmas, or children's workers and Christmas. I'm already seeing this go off on all the kids ministry sites, and I'm hearing kids pastors talk about this. Let's just go over this. Usually youth pastors get off really easy when it comes to holidays. Typically with Thanksgiving and Christmas, the youth are not expected to do a great big musical. And before you kids pastors start throwing rocks at me, just hang on. I know some of you just hate doing Christmas musicals. It's not your thing. You feel like you're not good at it, you weren't trained for it, and you wish that there were more alternatives. Some of you are saying, I can't believe my senior pastor is making me do this. It's so horrible. Why do I have to do this when the youth pastor doesn't? And I totally get that. The youth pastor usually doesn't. Sometimes the worship pastor has something that they have to do for Christmas services. Just to let you know that I do understand. Where I was on staff last, we had 7 Christmas Eve services in a row, all that had to be staffed for children's ministry. So it was incredibly difficult because, number one, most of my volunteers were not around. They'd left town. They weren't there for the holiday. 2, 7 in a row. It was craziness. Oh my goodness. Felt like a chicken with my head cut off trying to staff all of this and any kind of illustrative elements and such. So that was a lot. Every Christmas Eve we had 7 services in a row and we'd be packed out. So I do understand that. And everywhere I have ever worked, every single church I've ever worked at, the senior pastor has said, hey, we want the kids to do something for Christmas. And the children's leaders get frustrated because they're like, the senior pastor doesn't understand how hard of work that is. They don't know how much that is, and they don't understand. I just did BBS. I just had back to school kickoffs. I might have had Harvest Fest. I'm busy. I've got so much going on. I don't want to have to do a Christmas play. Okay, let's just back up here a little bit. I acknowledge, yes, the youth pastor doesn't have any of this, all these expectations. It's incredibly stressful. It's a stressful time of year. Your volunteers and your leaders are usually gone or AWOL. But, and hear me out, I also see what the senior pastor's saying, and here's why. Here's why. Number one, Christmas is the number one time of the year that you are going to have visitors. Period. Full stop. It is the way it is. Where I'm at, we have a high number of Catholic and Lutheran people, and it may be the only time of the year that they come to church will be Christmas and Easter. Christmas and Easter. So that's a huge opportunity when you're going to have guests in your church. If you don't do anything for Christmas or Easter, if you just shut down or you shove people through as fast as you can, you're missing a massive opportunity for church growth, which is why you're there. 2, you have expectations from parents, and here's where their parents just seem to expect that at Christmas they're going to see something for their children. If they don't, they're going to be upset. They may look elsewhere for their children to participate in something. They're going to put pressure on your senior pastor. It's Christmas. They want something that their kids are participating in. And whatever that is in their head, they're expecting to see angels and shepherds and Jesus and Joseph and Mary. And they want to see some kind of nativity. They're expecting it. And those expectations do put a lot of pressure on. And that's a difficulty. That is a difficulty. So I believe it's very important to do something at Christmas because you have all these visitors coming. You're going to have visitors, hopefully. You're going to have your visitors that show up. You get that one chance. What is going to make them come back? Well, I suggest you capitalize on this. And we stopped doing a Harvest Fest alternative because it was just too much for me. It ended up being way too much to do VBS and then a back to school kickoff and then Harvest Fest, and then it was just so much, too much. So what we did is we would recommend a trunk or treat that was near us that they could go to. We'll help support that trunk or treat, and then we will focus on our Christmas outreaches. We would start very early. I heard a children's pastor say to me today, the youth pastor said it's way too early in September to be talking about the Christmas stuff. I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. Oh, yes, those poor youth pastors that don't do the Christmas stuff. They do not understand. Yeah, usually you need to be working on that way in advance. You need to be kicking off rehearsals in September, not just start thinking about it. So September is a great time to get started on it. In my last video, if you didn't see it yet, I'll put the link here. I talked about September so important because if you did your VBS well, if you did your back to school kickoffs well, you're going to have visitors that give you a chance, one chance. And if they like what they see, they might come back. And one of the reasons they might come back is you're going to be doing something for kids for Christmas. That might be a Christmas play. That might be something else. We'll talk about some alternatives here in a minute. But there's something that their kids can be involved in. Remember, you'll keep the ones you involve. Another great reason to do some kind of a Christmas production is if you let those kids do something, anything. I don't care what it is. If you have them up there singing Christmas carols, you have them with angels' wings on, you have them up there doing somersaults, it doesn't matter. They're going to have every one of their aunts, uncles, cousins, roommates, brother-in-law, twice removed. They're going to have them there to watch. You're going to pack out if you have kids doing anything. So I would say to capitalize on that and make sure that you have kids doing something and really advertise that, and so the parents choose to be there and bring all of their relatives. So my suggestion would be use this time that people will be visiting your church for Christmas and see, number one, first, you're going to have to know what kids are going to be there for that service, whatever service the kids are going to be performing. And I would not ask the children. You need to ask the parent. So that's number one. Are you going to have kids there to do it? How many kids are you working with? Are you going to have only 5 in town at that point? Are you going to have a whole lot to work with? How many kids do you have to work with? And you need to get that signed off by a parent, because the kids will say, sure, I'll do it. I want to do it. I'll sing a solo, blah, blah, blah. And then after you've been practicing a while, the parent will say, oh, no, I'm not going to be there. We're gone. We're in wherever for that. So get that from a parent. 2, possibly based on how many kids you have, decide what kind of a Christmas thing you want to do with the kids. Notice I didn't pick the Christmas program first, because what if you need 30 leads and you have 5 kids that are going to be actually around for that period of time? So find out who you have. I actually do auditions, but you don't have to get that detailed. Then you pick what outreach you want to do. I would strongly suggest that whatever outreach you do, that you have a very strong salvation message, that the gospel is presented, because you have people coming who do not know Jesus, and that's the whole point of Christmas. The whole point of Christmas is Jesus coming to earth to save us when we couldn't save ourselves. make sure that whatever Christmas production you have has a strong salvation message. And that's great about all the traditional carols is they have a lot of the gospel just woven into them. So that's one thing. 4, I would plan your rehearsals. And how many rehearsals you need is going to depend on how complicated this production is that you think you can pull off in that amount of time. I tend to, everyone who knows me will agree on this, I tend to go for very huge, complicated, I write my own. So I go for big, complicated, huge musical outreaches, and we usually do pack out for them. But a lot of my friends will scale it way back. So let's talk about options here. One thing you could do would just be a kids' Christmas choir where they sing 2 or 3 songs. Give a couple of them solos. Then you don't need a ton of rehearsals to do that. If you're doing a whole big Christmas production like a musical, I would suggest you get started in September because you're probably going to need every minute of rehearsal up to that point. But you can do a Christmas choir. I've seen that done really well. You can do just a nativity scene where they come in and sit as the traditional nativity and have one of your good readers read the Christmas story. Or if you have more kids, let's say you have 20 kids, have them take turns reading parts of the Christmas story while they're up there in a nativity. This would not take a whole lot of rehearsals. It's adorable. Last year, a lady from our church, Linda Wolf, she did the Christmas production. She does it like every year. It's so cute. They had every child from the kids ministry. All of them were dressed as an animal from the nativity. So we had little 18-month-olds in a donkey outfit. We had sheep running everywhere. It was adorable, and they had the little nativity up there, and they sang a few songs. I tell you what, we packed out. The parents were thrilled. People came to watch this because their baby was dressed as a little lamb. It was not, I think they rehearsed 3 Sundays in a row during kids' church. And I thought that was very smart, which is going to lead me to number 4. Be very careful about adding a rehearsal another night of the week. Remember, churches do that all the time where they just add more and more and more nights of the week, and it's so hard for parents to get those kids there. So you should think carefully about that. They're back in sports, they're back in school, they're back in their clubs. They've got, by that I mean like around here, they're when they're hitting the clubs, what I mean is they're in 4-H. In this area, they're in their 4-H club. There's a computer club. There's a tabletop gaming club. Our school is big on having each kid in their club. So all of these things are happening. For me, what I do is have them do it right in the middle of kids' church. This can be a problem, though, if you've got a whole bunch of kids that aren't going to be there for the Christmas play. So that is not always ideal. I've done it right before church starts, so they have to come early, and then we work on it there. A friend of mine is doing it, their church, the kids are in worship first and then dismissed to kids' church. So during that first section is when she's doing their Christmas play rehearsal. I do think you need to rehearse. Absolutely, you need to rehearse, and I'd say the bigger the production, the more elements, the longer ahead you need to plan. You need more rehearsals. That's all those elements that could go wrong in the process. So if your lead pastor is saying you have to do something for Christmas, okay, remember, it is go time. It is a key time to reach people with the message of hope and salvation at a really tough time. I was the on-call pastor for years, and that was the number 1 time for suicides. That was the number 1 time for people to be depressed. A very, very difficult time. So once again, I would say find out which ones of your kids are going to be available. Include them all if you can. Include them all, including your new kids that just started coming after VBS. Include them. Give them something to do. 2, choose your program. What can you do? What's going to minister to your group of people? Choose your program. Maybe make it simple or as challenging as you want. Okay. 3, you're going to have to rehearse. I highly recommend not taking another night out of the week for these kids. 4, advertise, get it out there so that everybody hears about it and they bring friends, bring relatives. Make sure there's a big presentation of the gospel. Make sure that the gospel is presented, okay? And include these kids as much as you can. And last but not least, this is the part that most churches forget. How are you going to tie this into the ministry you're already doing so that they come back? What if someone becomes a Christian at this Christmas play? What if they want to know more about Jesus? What if there were visitor parents that went, wow, I want my kids to be doing something like this? Well, what I like to do is have our Christmas production closed out by our youth pastor or the lead pastor and say, hey, here, meet our lead pastor. This is the series he's preaching right now. And, oh, here's our youth pastor. Here's what we have for youth. And if you liked what you saw this morning, we do really cool stuff like this in Action Kids, and really play that up. Maybe have a promo video for that. And then me being me, I have a coupon that they can come back and get a free donut or a free coffee or whatever, because the goal is that they come to Christ and come back. Retention. And I almost forgot. I forgot a really big bonus of doing the kids' Christmas play. I forgot something very, very important. I apologize. Another really important thing here is kids remember what they do. You know this. They remember 10% of what they see, 20% of what they hear, and 60-some% of what they do. Okay, sometimes up to 80% of what they do. If they act out that Christmas play, they're always going to remember the story. And it's such an incredible, crucial story. So again, one more reason to do something with the kids for Christmas. All right. I hope this helps. I'm going to put a link down below to the Christmas production I wrote a couple years back that I carried out at our church, and it was really fun, but I'll warn you, it's totally me. It's big, it's a musical, it's out there, but it does have a great presentation of the gospel. It's called Finding Hope, and it's based on Finding Nemo. So it's all about finding hope at Christmas. So that's an option, but it's a lot of work to pull off, just so you're aware. All right, and if you need any help or if I can help in any way, please put your questions, comments down below, and I'll try to answer any way I can. Thank you for what you do for Jesus and his kids, and all my best on your Christmas play efforts this year. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.